The story begins in the year of 1950, a time when humanity has developed various robotic technologies to assist in daily activities. Initially, these robots were designed for theme park promotions. However, as time passed, more advanced robots were created to replace human labor entirely. By 1990, these machines, having been treated as mere slaves, rebelled against their human creators. The rebellion was led by a robot named Peanut, who spearheaded a movement advocating for robot rights. Tensions escalated, ultimately leading to a brutal war between intelligent robots and humans that lasted for 2 years. Unlike humans, robots never tired, causing the military forces to grow weaker over time. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, a young man named Christopher, usually called by Chris, is taking his university entrance exam. At that moment, Chris completes the exam with remarkable speed and achieves a perfect score, astonishing everyone, as he is still quite young. Knowing this, his older sister, Michelle, is in awe of his intelligence, remarking that even Einstein once took 3 days to solve the same problems that Chris completed in just an hour. However, despite his exceptional intellect, Chris is still a child at heart and is reluctant to leave his family for college. Understanding his hesitance, Michelle encourages him to pursue higher education, reminding him of his dream to change the world. She reassures him that he has nothing to fear, as she will always visit him during school holidays. During a semester break, Chris returns home to watch his favorite cartoon, Kid Cosmo, with Michelle. He confides in her that university life is overwhelming, as professors frequently invite scientists to study his intelligence, making him feel like a subject rather than a student. One day, while Chris, Michelle, and their parents are driving to a destination, tragedy strikes. Their car crashes on the road. When Michelle regains consciousness in the hospital, she receives devastating news. She is the sole survivor, while Chris and their parents have perished in the accident. Elsewhere, as the military continues to struggle against the relentless robot rebellion, a brilliant scientist named Ethan emerges. As the CEO of Center, Ethan develops a groundbreaking technology known as the NeuroHelm. This device allows human minds to connect with mechanical drone bodies. The military quickly adopts this technology to control drones in the battle against the rogue robots. With this advancement, humanity finally gains the upper hand, and the rebellion is suppressed. The defeated 6,000 robots are subsequently exiled to an exclusive zone, enclosed by towering walls and heavily guarded. With the war over, the NeuroHelm technology becomes commercially available to the public. Beyond its military applications, it allows users to immerse themselves in virtual entertainment worlds. This innovation rapidly gains popularity, turning the NeuroHelm into a globally sought-after commodity. 4 years later, Michelle is now under the care of her foster father, Ted. It was revealed that Ted frequently uses the NeuroHelm to control drones while remaining seated in his chair. However, he only adopted Michelle to receive government financial aid. During this time, Michelle has tried to escape multiple times, but Ted has placed a tracking bracelet on her ankle. He is also involved in smuggling illegal goods from the exclusive zone, taking advantage of their low prices. At school, when the teacher instructs students to use the NeuroHelm, Michelle refuses, preferring to learn by reading books. One night, as she sleeps, she suddenly hears a noise. Stepping outside to investigate, she is startled to find a robot. Panicked, Michelle rushes to wake Ted, but he does not respond. The robot chases Michelle into her room, forcing her to hide under her bed. However, the robot eventually finds her. To her surprise, it resembles the character from Kid Cosmo. Rather than attacking, the robot pleads for her help, asking her to fix a loose voice module in its head. After making the necessary repairs, the robot reveals its identity as Chris. Michelle is stunned and refuses to believe it. In shock, Michelle pushes the robot, causing it to crash into a wardrobe. Just then, Ted wakes up and storms into the room. Enraged at finding a robot inside his house, he shoves Michelle aside and orders her to get rid of it. Unexpectedly, the robot makes a familiar hand gesture, one that Chris used to do. Realizing the truth, Michelle finally believes that the robot is indeed her brother. Robot Chris then pushes Ted, who, furious, threatens to call the police. However, Michelle stuns Ted with a taser, knocking him unconscious. She then convinces Chris to escape with her. Before leaving, Chris helps destroy the tracking bracelet on Michelle's ankle. As they flee, Ted regains consciousness and sends drones after them. Michelle immediately accelerates to outrun their pursuers. By morning, Michelle is forced to stop after her car suffers a flat tire. Checking the trunk, she finds that the spare tire is also damaged. Frustrated, she turns to Chris and demands an explanation. How is it possible that her brother, who died, is now alive in a robot's body? Chris clarifies that he never actually died. His physical body is inside a center facility, while his consciousness has been transferred into the robot. However, since Center has multiple locations, Michelle asks which facility holds his real body, but Chris does not know. Desperate for answers, Michelle asks if there is anyone who can help them. Chris recalls that the person who assisted him was a doctor who wore glasses. Michelle suddenly remembers Dr. Amhurst, the hospital doctor who once told her that Chris had died. She urges Chris to locate Dr. Amhurst. Later, Chris checks a map and reveals that Dr. Amhurst is inside the exclusive zone in a region called Tabletop. At that moment, Michelle is puzzled. How can they possibly enter the heavily guarded exclusive zone, which is surrounded by towering walls? Michelle then recalls that Ted frequently purchased illegal goods from within the zone. Searching the trunk of the car, she finds shipping boxes and notes the sender's address. Realizing that this person must know a way inside, she sees a potential opportunity to infiltrate the exclusive zone. Michelle decided to take Chris with her to the address, traveling by train. Along the way, Chris noticed people completely engrossed in their neuro helmets, so addicted that they failed to realize the people around them had perished. That night, Michelle and Chris finally arrived at their destination. Once again, they saw individuals hooked on their neuro helmets, resembling those suffering from withdrawal. Chris felt a deep sadness seeing them, believing that the device had trapped many in the allure of the virtual world, making them forget reality. Michelle and Chris quickly took cover when a large trailer truck arrived. The driver was a man named Keats, known for smuggling goods out of the exclusive zone. From a distance, Michelle observed Keats selling a weapon to a buyer who used a drone for the transaction. However, the buyer refused to pay and instead attempted to shoot Keats. Suddenly, from inside the truck, something attacked the buyer, bringing him down. It turned out that Keats had a robotic assistant named Herman who came to his aid. As Keats and Herman disposed of the drone, Michelle and Chris quietly snuck into the trailer. Elsewhere, a police officer named Marshall was tracking Michelle and Chris using a drone, determined to find them. The next morning, Keats drove his truck to his headquarters, located beside the wall separating the exclusive zone. He and Herman unloaded the smuggled goods into the underground base, which also served as a secret passage into the exclusive zone. Hidden inside a crate, Michelle and Chris seized the moment to slip out while Keats was distracted. However, Keats soon heard something unusual. Suspicious, he and Herman quickly discovered Michelle and Chris sneaking around. Realizing that Michelle was just a teenager, Keats curiously asked why she had come all this way. Michelle explained that she had followed him on purpose because she wanted to enter the exclusive zone. Keats immediately refused, warning her of the extreme dangers inside, especially for someone her age. He urged Michelle to return home and forget about this place. Just then, the elevator began to ascend, signaling that someone else had arrived. In response, Keats quickly ordered Herman and Chris to hide, while he and Michelle pretended to be siblings. Their visitor turned out to be Marshall, controlling a drone. Keats acted as if it was just him and Michelle in the hideout, but Marshall was already aware that Michelle had escaped with a yellow robot, none other than Chris. At that moment, Marshall demanded that Michelle hand over the robot, insisting he had orders to deactivate it. Keats attempted to distract him, vehemently denying the presence of any robot. Just as Herman was about to strike from behind, Marshall used Keats as a shield and suddenly opened fire, launching a violent attack inside the hideout. Michelle grabbed a gas canister and struck Marshall with it, plunging the room into darkness. Keats attempted to shoot down Marshall's drone, but his efforts were futile. Enraged, the drone destroyed Keats' weapon. Marshall then grabbed Keats by the throat, choking him. Seeing this, Michelle pleaded with Marshall to let him go, promising to surrender. Marshall agreed, but demanded that she turn over the yellow robot. At that moment, Herman dropped a massive hook onto Marshall, momentarily stunning him. Seizing the opportunity, Herman urged Michelle and Chris to escape using a train. Keats quickly grabbed the keys and started the engine, but Marshall fired at the train, damaging it. Just as Marshall was about to shoot Chris, Herman disarmed him. Michelle, now behind the wheel of a tractor, rammed into Marshall's drone, triggering a landslide. With no time to waste, Keats rallied everyone to escape the collapsing tunnel as quickly as possible. Moments later, Michelle and the others managed to escape the landslide safely. However, they soon realized they had entered the exclusive zone, and with the tunnel collapse behind them, their only way out was now gone. At one moment, Herman suddenly heard something approaching. Keats quickly signaled for everyone to hide. Unexpectedly, a group of scavenger robots appeared, malfunctioning cannibalistic machines that salvaged spare parts from other robots. Once the scavengers had moved on, Michelle turned to Keats and asked for his help in finding a doctor within the exclusive zone. This doctor was the one responsible for transferring her brother Chris' consciousness into a robot's body. He also knew where Chris' original body was located. Michelle believed that if the doctor had found a way into the exclusive zone, he must also know a way out. Herman then asked where they could find this doctor. Michelle revealed that he was in a place called Tabletop. Since it was a long way from their location, Keats led them to his garage. Inside, Michelle noticed an old car, but it was missing an engine. To solve this, Herman activated a large robotic body. With no other way forward, Keats agreed to help Michelle. The giant robot carrying the car, containing Michelle, Keats, and Chris, began its journey toward Tabletop. As they traveled, Michelle saw remnants of war, robot wreckage scattered across the landscape, remnants of a battle fought 4 years ago. Keats shared his past, revealing that he was once an American soldier who fought against robots. During the war, he was wounded, but to his surprise, Herman found and saved him. Since that day, they have been inseparable allies. Elsewhere, Ethan was inside the virtual world through his neuro helmet when he suddenly experienced a network disruption. Frustrated, he demanded an explanation from his subordinates, questioning why the neuro helmet network becoming increasingly unstable. His subordinates reported that before being dismissed, Dr. Amhurst had implanted a virus into the system. Apparently, this virus caused Chris' consciousness to transfer elsewhere. For a long time, they had been using Chris' extraordinary brain power to run the neuro helmet network. Now that his consciousness had moved to another location, the system was beginning to fail. If this continued, the entire network would collapse within days. Despite this, they had already traced Chris' consciousness. It was now inside a yellow robot that had escaped with a girl named Michelle. Realizing the urgency, Ethan contacted Marshall and arranged a meeting within the virtual world of the neuro helmet. Ethan knew that Marshall was already on a mission to capture Michelle and the yellow robot. Since Ethan was also searching for the same robot, he proposed a deal. He asked Marshall to capture the yellow robot and bring it to Senna headquarters. In return, Ethan would restore Marshall's drone and provide him with unlimited resources. Once Marshall agreed, Ethan reactivated his drone, preparing for the hunt ahead. Elsewhere, Michelle and the others finally arrived at a place called Tabletop. In the distance, they spotted a large shopping mall. Suddenly, a group of robots inside the mall hurled a refrigerator toward them, causing Herman to lose his balance and fall. Before they could react, a robot named Perplexo captured them and escorted them inside the mall. Once inside, Michelle and the others saw numerous robots hiding within the building. As they entered, the robots gathered around, intrigued by the presence of humans. Michelle and Keats were soon introduced to Peanut, the leader of the robots. Peanut apologized for the attack, explaining that they had mistaken them for scavenger robots. Apparently, the robots in the mall were in hiding, trying to avoid the scavengers, dangerous, malfunctioning machines that preyed on other robots. Peanut then explained that they were attempting to build a new civilization, a place where robots could choose their own roles and live in peace. However, the presence of humans posed a risk to their sanctuary. For this reason, Peanut insisted that Michelle and Keats leave by morning. Michelle then explained her situation. Her brother, Chris, had been taken by Center, and somehow his consciousness had been transferred into the yellow robot. She asked if Peanut knew anything about a bespectacled doctor named Dr. Amhurst, as she believed he might know the location of Chris' real body. Peanut was puzzled as to why Senna would abduct a child, but he admitted that he knew Dr. Amhurst. The doctor was a specialist in merging human consciousness with robotic bodies. However, Peanut had exiled him from the mall long ago to avoid trouble. Frustrated, Michelle decided to leave immediately with Chris to continue their search. Peanut tried to stop her, warning that it was too dangerous to travel at night, but Michelle refused to listen. Keats quickly chased after her, urging her to reconsider. He reminded her that venturing out alone was reckless, especially since they had no clue where Dr. Amhurst was. Instead, he suggested they stay for the night and continue their search in the morning. He promised to help Michelle find the doctor. After some hesitation, Michelle reluctantly agreed to stay. That night, as Michelle rested, a mail delivery robot named Penny approached her. Penny handed over a letter left behind by Dr. Amhurst for Chris. The letter instructed Chris to meet the doctor at Pinnacle Road. Herman immediately recognized the location. It was an extremely dangerous area under scavenger control. If they wanted to reach it safely, they would need reinforcements. From the shadows, Peanut stepped forward and offered his assistance. He introduced them to Pop Fly, an old, battle-worn robot skilled in combat. Despite his aged appearance, Pop Fly had once fought against the scavengers and survived. By midday, Marshall had managed to reach the area of the mall. From a distance, he spotted Michelle and the others leaving in Peanut's vehicle, heading across the desert toward Dr. Amherst's location. As night fell, guided by Penny's instructions, they finally arrived at their destination. At one moment, Michelle noticed a house with its lights on. However, before they could approach, a group of scavengers suddenly emerged and surrounded them. Panicked, they ran toward the house, but the door wouldn't open. Just as their anxiety peaked, the floor beneath them gave way, sending them tumbling into an underground room. Inside, they found Dr. Amhurst. He was visibly astonished that he had successfully transferred Chris's consciousness into a robot. Furious, Michelle demanded to know where Chris's real body was. In response, Dr. Amhurst revealed that Chris's body was being kept at Center's headquarters in Seattle. Michelle then questioned why Center had captured her brother in the first place. Dr. Amhurst summoned his assistant robot, PC, which contained all of his research data. Displaying the information on a monitor, he explained that 4 years ago, humanity was losing hope in the war against robots. During that time, they discovered Chris, who had fallen into a coma and was on the verge of death. Upon further examination, they realized that his brain possessed extraordinary capabilities, which could be harnessed to power the Helm neural network. Apparently, Dr. Amhurst had been in a moral dilemma. If he did nothing, Chris would have died. What Senta did, in essence, was save Chris's life. However, a year later, an unexpected miracle occurred. Chris woke up. Acting quickly, Dr. Amhurst pleaded with Ethan to release the boy, but Ethan refused, threatening to kill Dr. Amhurst if the information ever leaked. Before fleeing, Dr. Amhurst created a program that transferred Chris's consciousness into a robot. He embedded instructions in Chris's memory, guiding him toward the exclusive zone of tabletop, where he could seek refuge among the other robots. Outraged, Keats punched Dr. Amhurst in frustration. However, the monitor suddenly displayed footage of Marshall's drone closing in. Moments later, Marshall breached the underground hideout. At the same time, the power abruptly went out, and in the darkness, Peanut lunged at Marshall, attempting to push him back. However, Marshall effortlessly overpowered him. Meanwhile, Michelle and the others managed to escape. Above ground, Center's drone army descended upon them. Popfly immediately began firing back, igniting a chaotic battle. As Michelle and Chris tried to flee, a drone intercepted them from behind, but Dr. Amhurst shot it down before it could strike. Marshall soon emerged, searching for Michelle. Knowing this, Dr. Amhurst urged her to take Chris and escape, offering to hold Marshall back. Confident that Marshall would not harm a human, Dr. Amhurst stepped forward. But before he could act, a Senna drone, controlled remotely by Ethan, fired a fatal shot at him. Marshall was visibly shocked, realizing too late that Ethan had orchestrated the attack. Ethan then ordered Marshall to complete the mission and capture Chris. Elsewhere, Michelle and Chris found themselves surrounded by drones. One of them managed to seize Chris and lift him into the air. Just then, Marshall shot down the drone that had grabbed Michelle. Turning to her, he ordered her to leave. Marshall and the drones then retreated, leaving Michelle stunned. By the time Michelle and the others returned to the mall, they found it in ruins. Center's drone army had already been there, leaving devastation in their wake. Many robots had been destroyed. Among them was Perplexo. Inside the Center headquarters, Chris found himself staring at his own paralyzed body, suspended in a containment tube. Just then, Ethan entered the room, instructing his subordinates to restore Chris's consciousness back into his body. Meanwhile, Marshall, who was also present, was determined to arrest Ethan for the previous night's crimes, murdering a human and conducting experiments using the brain of a child, Chris. Ethan defended his actions, claiming that the person he had killed was a traitor to the nation. He further explained that by using Chris's brain, humanity could achieve victory in the war with the advanced neurohelm technology. Ethan insisted that everything he was doing was for the greater good, even if sacrifices had to be made. He then ordered his men to lock the program, ensuring that Chris's consciousness could no longer be transferred. Meanwhile, in a mall, Michelle turned to PC and asked if it was true that he possessed all the knowledge of Dr. Amhurst. PC confirmed that he did. In response, Michelle inquired whether PC had the security codes needed to escape from this exclusive zone. PC confidently replied that he did, along with access codes to enter the facility where Chris was being held. This sparked an idea in Michelle. She and Keats would travel to Seattle to rescue Chris. Herman also volunteered to join them, planning to use his newly repaired giant robot. However, PC warned Michelle that if she were to extract Chris from the Senate headquarters, the entire neurohelm network across the world would collapse, rendering all drones inoperable. Upon hearing this, the robots in the mall eagerly agreed to assist Michelle in her mission. Just then, Peanut arrived. He expressed his reluctance to engage in another war, recalling their devastating loss against the drones in the past. Michelle reassured him that she had a plan. She would infiltrate the Senate headquarters, and once Chris was freed, all enemy drones would be rendered useless. The robots in the mall, despite understanding the risks, agreed to support Michelle. Moved by her determination, Peanut finally decided to join the mission as well. Without delay, Michelle and her robotic allies boarded large trucks and set off for the Senate headquarters in Seattle. The following day, Herman, piloting his giant robot alongside Keats, launched an assault by hurling a car at the headquarters to create a distraction. Inside, Ethan received reports of the attack and immediately deployed all his drone forces to engage Herman outside. Once the drones had been dispatched, Michelle and PC seized the opportunity to slip into the building undetected. Meanwhile, Herman led the drones on a chase, but one drone eventually self-destructed, causing his giant robot to collapse. Unexpectedly, Herman managed to eject a smaller robot, which rescued Keats. As the battle raged on, the robot army fought alongside Keats and Herman against the relentless swarm of drones. Recognizing the escalating chaos outside, Ethan decided to personally intervene. Meanwhile, PC reached Chris's containment room and swiftly eliminated the guards. Michelle gazed at Chris's lifeless body and asked if there was any way to communicate with him. PC explained that the only method was to use a neurohelm to enter Chris's subconscious mind. Outside, Ethan deployed a specialized, large-scale drone to assist his drone army in battling the robot forces. With ease, he tore through the robots, destroying them one by one. Meanwhile, Marshall intercepted Peanut and questioned why he had gone through so much trouble to come here. Peanut responded that he was fighting for the freedom of his kind, even if it cost him his life. However, Marshall had not come to kill Peanut. Instead, he revealed the location of the control room where Ethan was operating the drones inside the building. Realizing that their true enemy was Ethan all along, Marshall sat down and deactivated his own drones. On the battlefield, Ethan's drones launched a relentless attack on Herman's giant robot, ultimately bringing it down. Keats was thrown from the wreckage. As a drone closed in on him, Herman's smaller robot quickly intervened, shielding Keats and attacking the drone. Elsewhere, Peanut infiltrated the center headquarters, confronting Ethan directly. He wanted to renegotiate the agreement they had made 4 years ago. Outside, Keats watched in horror as Herman's damaged robotic body lay lifeless, struck down by enemy fire. At the same time, Michelle used the neurohelm to enter Chris's subconscious mind. She urged him to leave this place with her, but Chris refused. He admitted that he felt guilty. Because of him, many people had suffered due to the existence of the neurohelm. Michelle then explained that this was precisely why she had come, to take him away and shut down the neurohelm system for good. However, Chris revealed that he had seen his own paralyzed body and understood the grim reality. As long as he was alive, Sinner could exploit his brain for centuries. He did not want to endure such a fate. He did not want to leave. Instead, he pleaded with Michelle to destroy him, so everything could finally be over. Michelle refused. She could not bear to lose Chris again. She insisted that PC could help transfer Chris's consciousness into a robotic body once more. But Chris shook his head. Sinner had already locked his consciousness, making it impossible to transfer again. He begged her, convinced there was no other way. With a heavy heart, Michelle removed her neurohelm. Granting her brother's final request, she shut down the life support system sustaining him. Chris died instantly. With his passing, every neurohelm system around the world shut down, and all enemy drones collapsed. Though they had won the war, Keats remained sorrowful, mourning the loss of his dear friend, Herman. Suddenly, Herman's robotic helmet opened, and from within emerged his smaller robotic form. To Keats's relief, Herman was still alive. His true form was much smaller than they had thought. In the aftermath, Ethan was finally arrested for exploiting a child's brain. Through a recorded message, Michelle urged humanity to embrace real life once again. She encouraged people to coexist with robots, but this time with a new and improved approach, one that fostered harmony and a better future. Amidst the piles of scrap metal, a yellow robot suddenly came to life. Within it, a small fragment of Chris's consciousness still remained. And so, the story came to an end. Moral lesson from the story: if you ever find your brother's consciousness trapped in a robot, make sure to check the warranty before shutting him down. Also, always carry a spare tire, because flat tires happen at the worst possible moment, even during a robot apocalypse.